Puerto Rico perhaps is perfect for Thanksgiving. Given Thanksgiving is only a few days, and I'm talking specifically about visiting San Juan, I think Puerto Rico has so much promise, and there are lots of other aspects and sides to Puerto Rico that I would love to spend time in, but I went to San Juan, so I'm going to focus on there. And San Juan presents the opportunity to combine a city tour with beaches, and I do think that's a delightful combination. And while San Juan is a big metropolis, the old town of San Juan is absolutely delightful. Each of the houses are unique colours, so you have this beautiful picturesque scene of delightfully coloured buildings with plants, and if it's a beautiful bright day, which it was every day that we were there, they almost shimmer against the backdrop of a sunny day. And if you do nothing else in the old town other than just walk around the streets and explore and, go down some of the cobbled streets, it is absolutely delightful. If you want to venture into the history of Puerto Rico, then I recommend the forts. There are two major forts that are really easy to visit and inexpensive. And they also are great to visit because I don't know if you're like me, but I get a little bit overwhelmed and bored if you give me an overload of information. And the information is just right. You get to choose what you read and, how much you want to take in. And then you have the whole environment of the forts to explore. And they offer a great height to take the most phenomenal photographs so that you get these, because you get such great views. And I think, obviously, that is why they're forts. That's, going back into the history, they obviously had the perfect outlook. And that's why the forts were built there. But they are amazing. And the king of the castle in the fort is the iguana. And the iguana is this beautiful green lizard, quite a majestic animal in its own right. And it will lie on the walls of the fort walls as if it really is the king of the castle. But in fact, it's an intruder. I assumed it was native to Puerto Rico, but it isn't. And just as the country was invaded by numerous people over the centuries, so too did the iguana, presumably with the people who came. It invaded also. And it has multiplied, and it's actually derailed the ecological system in Puerto Rico because there are so many of them and there isn't a natural predator of the iguana. So they have reproduced probably to a degree that wouldn't have happened in its native country. But anyway, they're very beautiful nonetheless. And talking of the history of invasion, I think this exposes something quite interesting about countries that have been invaded a lot, especially if it's an island. Puerto Rico was, from a strategic point of view, a really important island for invading countries to conquer because of its location to the Americas. And so when the Spanish conquered or took over the island from the native population of the indigenous population of the Taino people, it remained in Spanish rule from 1493 to 1898. Then the US invaded, and it remains to this day a US territory. And so it is a plus for Americans because they can go very readily to Puerto Rico, don't need visas or anything. So perfect for a last minute getaway. And although it is officially a US territory, it is independent and functions as its own country. So it's steeped in history from the invasions of other countries that have fought one another to take over the island and so on. Christopher Columbus called the island San Juan Bautista, and it was known as that, and the city, San Juan, was known as Puerto Rico, which means rich port. And then at some point the name switched, so the city became San Juan and the country is Puerto Rico, rich port. I find the people of Puerto Rico fascinating. They're incredibly welcoming. They tend to speak English and Spanish really, really well, which makes it easy to be a tourist there because you can go speaking either language and they will be able to receive and take care of you. And but I noticed after being there a few days that I think tourists fall into two camps, and we were naturally put into the first camp when we were first there, which I think means that they treat us with hospitality and welcome and tell us what they assume we want to know, but they keep many of their cards close to their chest and don't reveal too much about themselves directly or even their country. However, when you probe a little bit more with a deep sense of curiosity and interest, and also a deep respect for who they are, they open up, and it seems that you enter into another camp where they want to divulge a few more secrets. They want to tell you their favourite beaches. They want to tell you, how to avoid certain worries or concerns. They want to tell you about events that are happening that they would attend, the bars that they would go to, the restaurants they would eat at, whereas obviously at first value they're telling you where they think they should tell you to go. And I really appreciated being shifted into the second camp, and that is when I started to discover that there really is almost a request for respect, a request for our being interested and deeply curious rather than assuming, assessing or judging. It was really interesting discovering this, and it also then dawned on me that it's not entirely surprising given it's a country that's been hugely invaded, and not entirely surprising either given that hospitality is the gateway to any country. It's how any tourist is going to find out about any country. So the closer and kinder we can get and be with our hosts, then the more we're going to learn from it. So I found that really fascinating as well. And I think a hidden gem in Puerto Rico is El Yunque. I'm probably not pronouncing it properly, but it's the national rainforest. And it is absolutely phenomenal. And if you get a good guide who will take you and explain all the aspects of, how things have evolved in Puerto Rico from an ecological point of view, because along with the invasion came different plants and different things. So, for example, it has bamboo, which is not native to Puerto Rico, and that's shooting up everywhere. Just really fascinating things. And when you have the tour, you go to a tall tower, and that offers the most phenomenal views across Puerto Rico. So if you're going to go to the National Rainforest, make sure you go on a really clear day so that you can optimize the views that you will see from that tower. One of the other things that's really accessible in Puerto Rico, more so than the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, where cabs are really expensive, is taking advantage of cabs in Puerto Rico, because some of the beaches are a little bit further afield, and when they've told you their favourite beaches, it's worth jumping in a cab and going to these beaches. Furthermore, cab drivers are friendly and usually willing to divulge all sorts of stories, and so you learn a lot more through the cab driver as well. And so I really enjoyed going around by cab, and because it was so inexpensive, we could get to go to different beaches and see more than the beaches that are immediately within San Juan, right near Old Town. Also, between very close to the Old Town is a beautiful lagoon that leads out into the sea, and I was very admiring of the people who will paddleboard and literally go right out from the lagoon into the sea. Quite incredible. But apparently the lagoon is also home to the manatee. Now, the manatee are generally very elusive, but they were completely elusive during my stay. I followed all the instructions to go and see them at the time that they might be likely to be around. I'm highly gullible, so perhaps, I was being spun a yarn, but I I tried to see the manatee and failed. But apparently they're there. And I did a night kayaking with my husband out on the lagoon, which was phenomenal as well. You get a fast crash course in how to kayak, and because you're in a double kayak, you get a crash course in your relationship dynamics because only one person can lead the kayak. That was interesting between my husband and I was at the front. I was in theory giving the controls, giving control and giving the command, but that isn't actually what was really happening. But it was great fun. And also what made me laugh afterwards was I was told afterwards that anybody in the know never goes to the lagoon. I did not admit that I went night kayaking. And given we're all tourists anyway, I recommend you go. Apparently it's full of bacteria, but I'm alive to tell the tale, so I think all is well. So I think that there is lots of opportunity in Puerto Rico, and I would love another visit, this time to outside of San Juan. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Take care.